40 plus years in the making, Megalopolis is the Francis Ford Coppola movie that is finally here. But is it everything we could want from cinema, or is it complete misfire? Hey everyone, welcome to Cinema, where we focus on a film. I'm Josh, this is Simply Cinema. Let me know that in comments below what you thought of Megalopolis. Was it good, was it bad, or somewhere right in the middle? Or we're waiting for this review to help you decide if you're going to see it or not. Make sure to like this video if you enjoyed, subscribe if you haven't already to join in the film culture community where we talk about the love of cinema as a whole. And going right into synopsis. Set in a modern Roman Empire, there's sights on a new leader rising up to create a change, create a utopia, but all the changes that are coming about creates divisions and everything within the streets. And going right into the positive, overall there's a retrospect to this film that I was intrigued from what Megalopolis could bring Francis Ford Coppola's film that's 40 plus years in the making, and I feel it delivered on many fronts. It showed the craftsmanship of Francis Ford Coppola, what he could bring to filmmaking. There are certain scenes here and there that are a visual representation of cinema to its fullest extent, certain things that I couldn't understand what exactly was going on. There's different aspect ratios, different divisions between what they utilize with creating dividers within the story, multiple different camera views at different times that create some great angles, speak to the fullest extent of what certain angles are visualizing, what they're speaking to the story, how they're characterizing the characters, and bringing out some great battles, certain things that is so well worth the amount of money that was put into this film that Francis Ford Coppola, he's been wanting to make this for so long, and I feel there's so much that he was managing to bring about, whether he's wanting it to be successful or wanting it to be everything he wanted, and it probably is everything he wanted, even if there's division specific parts here and there with what people may be receiving out of it. It's an ambitious film that feels its fullest remarks, has great moments here and there that really scattered about, and the visual representation still is something that shows the cinematography is on point. All of the characters, the cast members, especially Adam Driver himself, Giuliano D'Esposito, I just enjoy what we get out of him, John Voight, out of all these different characters that we're asking for this film to represent and to be able to create up this new modern Roman Empire that was brought to life in something that I did not expect to look so visually stunning. And there's a lot of the shots that are already presented in the trailer, so it sort of spoils to some regard the visual. I got iconic free, but that doesn't necessarily take away from being able to visualize this, to be able to see this on the big screen. And there was a good amount of time that I had with certain aspects of the characterization, the ideas, the visual, and delivering on its premise from the message alone on the ideas and the rising of a new leader and the uprisings, certain divisions within the street. It speaks a lot to human nature, human life, and that's almost a love letter to humans, while also showing flaws in certain ideas. It doesn't hone in and go too hard on what it's doing with its fable, what it's trying to preach with its message or anything. It's not shoving anything down your throat with the ideas or the story, but the visual ideas and the look to the story as a whole was definitely something that delivered as a whole, which takes me into the mixed elements, to which there is certain aspects of the film that I can't really speak on whether you'll love it or whether you'll hate it, because this is a visual feast, but there are also some big negatives to the film. Being 40 plus years in the making, that's an ambitious thing, but for the age that he would have been writing this film, what may have been changed in the revisions, it speaks to so many different messages that it almost becomes convoluted to the nature of what you're exactly taking out of it. It doesn't necessarily have bad writing, but it feels overstuffed with so many things, certain ideas, certain aspects to the characterization of the ideas, that it doesn't necessarily feel like there's specific things that you're going to be clear cut on being able to take out of it and say this is exactly what the story is about. Besides certain points here and there, things that I mentioned in the positive that I took out of it, it feels like there's a lot more to be said with this film. Maybe it needs a rewatch or multiple rewatch is in order to understand the story. Obviously, Francis Ford Coppola has a lot he wants to do and is satisfied with his end result, but that can throw off what the audiences can receive from the film, certain things, because they're not growing up with these characters, growing up with this writing, to understand all the certain nuances that goes about with whether it will really work for them, because they're not living and writing out their story as Francis Ford Coppola did. And so certain nuances here and there can throw off our clear-cut understanding of what exactly this story is about. Which takes me into the mixed elements, to which, yes, there are certain parts of this story that can throw me off a little bit, don't necessarily intrigue me to the fullest, and there are certain moments, yes, I was a little bit tired going into it, but almost dozing off, not fully, because I don't normally fall asleep at films in general, but it still sort of caught me off guard how uninteresting certain remarks could be, certain points of the dialogue, or certain things that felt a little weird, not necessarily old age dialogue or certain things, because it's also dealing with a fable that's meant to be in a modern futuristic utopia, what it's doing with its craft, what it's doing with its characters. That feels like I said, there's a lot to be said with this film, which can be a very good thing, but also in one regard, a very bad thing, because it doesn't necessarily feel like it got the message clear cut, painted across the screen for us to understand, which makes it easy to enjoy the certain visual representation, what its ideas are, and how it's filmed. But that's not necessarily meant to be the whole story. Some people aren't going to be going into the film just to see a visual representation of cinema. We can get this in other films, even if this one does its own unique regards to what it's showing, it is being one of Coppola's best works to the visuals alone. But that doesn't speak a lot to the story all the way through. It feels like a film that's longer than it is, but also feeling like it has scenes that need to be shorter and certain ideas that need to be fleshed out to be a longer film. And so certain things need to be cut, certain things feel like it should be longer as a whole, which makes it tricky as an epic, because epics are normally 3 hours plus. That makes you want more out of this, for the visuals especially, but feeling too long in certain regards to what it's doing with its story tropes, story regards, and certain ideas along the way that can throw your idea of what you're getting out of reception of this film as a whole, that just puts it in all of this divisive regard, whether you'll love it, whether you'll like it, or if you're very divisive on the film as a whole, like I am myself, which I have to rate this film a simply 5 out of 10, which, yes, I'm leaning slightly more to the positive side because of the visual regards of the film, but frustrated at the same time by certain remarks of what this film has for its story not being too clear-cut on what it's trying to say. So that's just my personal review. Make sure to like this video if you enjoy it, subscribe if you haven't already to join in film culture community where you're talking about the love of cinema as a whole. Make sure to comment down below, is it good, is it bad, or is somewhere right in the middle, or if you're waiting for the review to help you decide if you're going to see it or not. And so that's just all, and make sure to do yourself a favor and go watch a movie.